Today's guest is Reuben, the founder and creative force behind Roundtable Media. With a decade of advertising experience and a master's in managerial psychology, Reuben knows how to build a brand. But in the early days, he made a classic founder mistake. He was too generous with equity. He chose to partner up instead of hire, handing over shares to people whose values weren't aligned with his own. It seemed like a good way to get skin in the game, but it quickly turned into a nightmare. He found himself trapped in a partnership with a misaligned vision, unable to bring in new partners or even make critical decisions without unanimous consent. The company stagnated, and disagreements over value and contribution pushed that team to a boiling point. Today, we're talking about the equity trap, the expensive lesson of giving away ownership too soon, and why Ruben now believes you should always hire first and talk equity only after loyalty has been earned. Ruben, thank you for coming on the pod. How are you doing?
Hey, Ben, thanks for having me. I'm doing all right.
Great, great. Well, Ruben, you made a decision to partner up instead of hire, right? At
Yeah.
the time, what was kind of so appealing to that model in the beginning? And yeah, why did it feel like the right move to give equity away?
Yeah. So I think for some a little bit of context, right? So I guess you mentioned that I used to work in advertising. So when I opened my business, I was still working in advertising.
Uh-huh.
So it was one of those things where I found somebody which I thought we gelled quite well. And I thought this guy doesn't have a full-time job. He kind of can run the operation side of things. And so I thought, okay, our business will be focused more on content, video production, photography, right?
Right.
And I was thinking, okay, I can get the sales because that was what I was doing at that time. At that point in time, there
Uh-huh.
were a lot of sales coming in, and I couldn't. And the whole company was based upon the sales that I was bringing in. So I was thinking that I could partner up with somebody who could run the operations while I continue with my full time job.
Mm.
And then there was lesser risk as well, right? If the company doesn't do well, we could just. I mean, I can not take the salary because I still had a full time salary.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I thought it was a very good safety kind of thing. And yeah, I needed someone to handle the daily stuff. And I thought that, partnering up and giving away equity was the best way to do that back.
Time out, guys. Lots of you are watching. Lots of you are learning from the founder fuck ups that we've all gone through. But please do me one little teeny favor and subscribe so that we can keep growing the channel and get more great founders on. Back to the episode.
Then
So it was kind of like at the time, would you classify that partnership kind of like a co-founder relationship? It was like, hey, I'm going to bring in the sales and you're going to run it. That was kind of what you were looking at between this and this particular individual.
yeah, so I think at that point in time, when I was about to start the company, I think he reached out.
Mm.
He said like, "Hey, you've hired me a bit here and there, and it seems like you're gonna build something, and I want in kind of thing." And I was like, I actually also was thinking of working with him in the long term because
Mm.
we did hire each other for each other's jobs from time to time, and
Mm.
it just seemed like a trajectory to partner up and go for it. But yeah, the model that we came about at the beginning when we sat down, as dreamers often do, I was like, okay, I will take on. If we were a big corporate company, my role would be more of the CEO and your role would be more of the COO, right? And let's split everyone's task load based on that.
Mm.
So, a lot of the operational side, I said, okay, you can try to figure it out. A lot of the other executive decisions, I kind of figure out as well. But of
Yeah.
course, the bulk of the sales will come from me and yeah, help make sure that the pipeline is smooth.
Yeah. I often refer to co-founder relationships nearly the same as marriage, right? Where if you're getting into that partnership, you are
Yeah,
literally married. There's even a legal document, just like there is in a marriage. And
yeah.
ironically, it's easier to get divorced than break up a business partnership. And so it sounds like perhaps you guys jumped in all excited as dreamers and it kind of happened quite quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it happened really, really quick because I think when I registered the company, and then I made it known to my former clients and people who know me in the industry that I was opening my own production house. I think the jobs came in and the jobs came in quite quickly. And I think we hit the ground running. So I think when things are really, really busy, and we're at the beginning and the excitement of that high of something new.
Yeah.
A lot of the problems that we should have seen, we didn't really care about it because like things are going well. Why do you want to hit the brakes on anything? Yeah, I think another thing that I was talking to him about at the beginning was I didn't want to just have one partner. I know this is like an equity trap, right? But I was talking to him about let's have a third partner at
Mm.
all times because I thought three would be safer than two, because 33% split versus a 50-50 kind of thing sounded like a safer thing. But because we hit the ground running without that third partner, we kind of like just forgot about it entirely. And
Mm.
then like, we just went ahead based on that.
Yeah. So we had a shotgun wedding, shall we say? It was pretty
Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
And you mentioned that your values weren't aligned. When did you kind of first start to feel the cracks of that partnership? Was it like a specific disagreement that kind of made you start to realize, hey, we're actually on a different page?
Yeah, I think it started maybe about a year into it. I think in my field, right, where we have a lot of freelancers, so we always have this saying that to run the business in this marketing area, you need to either have a business mindset or freelancer mindset. And these are very different pathways for your future. As a business mindset person, you want to build longevity. You want to build a brand that can exist without you.
Mm.
You want to be able to like, one day hand it off and then, just reward, reap the rewards from it.
Mm.
Whereas if as a freelancer mindset, you are maybe thinking of it from a daily point of view.
Yeah.
Like this pays the bill with this gives me money. When
And
I
that's that
when I'm not
vision.
working, yeah, yeah, it's a vision there, right? So I think that was one of the main things that we differed in at the big, maybe about, I realized 1 year after, was that this individual just wanted to earn.
Uh,
And yeah, and at the beginning of a business, you can't really just take a salary and
mm.
and carry on with life, right? You kind of have to like pump it back into the company, kind of have to like try to expand. And I think what happened in the end was that we had a very different viewpoint on how we're supposed to grow the company. Yeah, I wanted to, shrink things down so that we can hire more, like maybe shrinking our, and maybe bring in more people. Let's start bringing more people into the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, and try to expand the company from there, looking out at maybe sales, maybe at our different pipelines, expanding
Mhm.
the product range that we can offer. But yeah, I think that was one of the major parts that we had. And also it's that long game versus let's push everything that we have right now.
Mm.
Like I personally feel like I wanted to play the long game. I wanted to build relationships, even if certain clients weren't as lucrative. I saw potential in them and I said, okay, let's just do this one. We start with this, we can maybe open doors to other places. Yeah. Whereas like, the other party just wanted to just keep on getting everything across the board. But I wanted to be a bit more choosy as well. Yeah.
Okay. So at the beginning, you've got what we've kind of missed out on in the courtship phase of the partnership because we skipped that
Yeah.
was aligning on the right vision. And his vision was, hey, I want to use this as not even building a business. I just want to reap the rewards, earn extra
Yeah.
money, be a freelancer and a
Yeah.
glorified freelancer, so to speak. Whereas you were like, no, I have a vision to build our media company and to create this agency, this creative force, your vision, legacy, etc. And that's
Yeah.
where the actual disagreement started to butt heads.
Yeah. That's when I started knocking. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I guess this is where because you said it was hard to move forward, right? So we've got a misaligned vision. What was like a critical decision which started to get blocked because of these fundamental like disagreements? Like, how did that impact the company's momentum? Because we said that it stagnated, right?
Yeah, I think it started with actually our first hire that's not at us. Yeah. I think at some point the bottleneck ended up at the end of our delivery channel. So in production, that's the editing phase, right? When we can shoot all we want, but if nothing gets edited, nothing goes up, right?
Mm.
And so we had a really big bottleneck there, and we decided to plug that hole by hiring our first person, right? And I think we had very different approaches to okay, we hired a person without a problem. Like we had a conversation, we interviewed the guy together, we hired the person, and there wasn't a problem. But I think we had very different ideas of how this person was supposed to perform. Yeah, and the way that I saw it was in production, we split everything up into three main phases. Like you had the pre-production, you had the production, and then you have the post-production. The way that our business was structured at that point in time, I handled mostly the pre-production, whereas my partner handled the production and the post-production because
Mhm.
that was the way that it generally flowed. And so we hired a person at the post end. And when I saw this person being hired, I thought that would be my partner's prerogative to take care of this guy, to make sure this guy's
Huh?
trained up or that. But I think at some point, we didn't discuss it. I think that was a problem as well. We didn't discuss it. And in the end, what happened was that he also thought that I should be, teaching this guy. And it was, the thing is that I think he wanted a plug and play approach where, okay, we hire somebody, we plug the hole, and now this hole will settle itself. Right.
Mm.
And we all know when you hire people, it's going to be hit and miss, right? And sometimes you don't get the best. Sometimes you can get a good person and they could turn out to be a good person as well. But you just
Mm.
have to put in the effort, you have to put in the hours, right, to train this person up. And yeah, I think we hit butted there quite a bit because there was a lot of, I guess, different opinions on how are you supposed to teach somebody or how you're supposed to train somebody up for the role. Yeah, and I think that was one of the major things. And I think in the end, what we did was we adopted a very wait and see approach
Mm.
of things. It's like, okay, we let this person be on their own because we couldn't agree on how to raise or how to teach this person. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's more like, here's your job, here's your task. Let's see how you screw up, and then
Yeah.
we'll figure it out later after you screw up.
Okay. So I'm seeing the cascading mistake here where shotgun wedding, we jumped into partnership without
Yeah, we
really,
had a baby.
you just basically had a, and then you go and have a kid, but you're not communicating properly on
Yeah,
how to raise that child. So we've got two opposing visions, the wrong kind of communication around roles, responsibilities, how we work with ours. Yeah, I see. And, disagreements, I think they are quite common, right? We
yeah.
have disagreements with our partners, and I think you should have constructive conflict. But how did the conversations around this person play out? Did you often start to butt heads and argue, and it wasn't really constructive conflict, or was it, were you guys avoiding the conversation? What started to happen there?
Yeah. So at this point, when the tension started, I was still having my full-time job as well. But I managed to negotiate like a 3-day, 2-day kind of deal with the company. And so I thought that would be like a clear sign that, I was starting to move in, taking the job more seriously, taking the business more seriously. But one thing I realized when I started taking the job or the business more seriously, right, was that I realized how much the other party didn't seem to be taking the business more seriously. I think it
Mm.
became like, who is doing more things, and that became the main issue that popped up as well. That comparison.
When you're talking about the value and the contribution between
Yeah.
partners, typically it's like, how do you even um, quantify the contribution? Was it something
Okay.
you were quantifying, like something you were like, hey, you were counting the work and going, he's not doing as much? Or was it more like a feeling like he wasn't as fast paced, he wasn't showing up as much? Like, what was that?
Yeah, I think it was really okay. Our type of work, right? It's really hard to quantify because at the end, is the person that brings in the sale the more important person, or is the person that does the work? Because in the end, clients still want to see the work, right? I think we couldn't quantify each other's value, and I think what happened was that because we didn't talk much when the tensions happened. Yeah, now I remember your question. When the tensions happened, we didn't really communicate it. So
Mm.
because I wasn't in the office as often as I should be, we just left it quiet. And when nothing is said, then everything kind of like you create the conversations in your head. And I think
Mm.
that's what happened to both parties as well. Instead of coming together, let's hash it out. I did like this or you didn't like that. Like let's talk about it. We just decided to do our own thing while technically being still part of the company.
Yeah.
And so what happened in the end was that I think we barely talked at all as there was a job. So instead of running like a business, we were running more like freelancers. So back
Yeah.
to square one, right? Where I would talk, okay, we have this job. Do you want to come and shoot? And how we gonna edit this thing? And it just became very project centric.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about a vision anymore. And I think the funny thing was that I think after we ended things and we managed to go our separate ways. Oh, it really does sound like a breakup. But yeah, after we kind of like dissolved resolve the conflict, right? Then only I realized, oh wait, I had all these ideas for the company, which I already put on the back burner for almost 3 years. Yeah. And I didn't realize that until the end of this partnership happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we actually reached a bit of a boiling point where the way you've just described it, you're kind of sat in the office, but you're not even talking to each other. I can just
Yeah.
imagine, and if we, as we're talking about breakups, right, you can just imagine where you've got a couple that are just, they're not talking to each other and the tension in the room, like they're frustrated and the tension in the room, you can like, it's so thick, you can slice it like butter, you know? What did that like? What did that look like? Was it that we just weren't talking? When was the moment that you kind of realized, hey, this isn't salvageable. We do need to make a change, and no matter what the cost is.
Yeah, I think it started when actually I don't think we can really call it a boiling point because it felt more like a lukewarm waters
Yeah.
for like really long time. Like nothing was moving. You could feel the entire stagnation. The company was doing all right. Like we weren't losing money. We weren't. Yeah, we were still profitable in a sense. We just weren't getting as much sales as we should have, or we weren't working as hard as we should have. But I think what really I guess if there is a boiling point, I think our entire communications just broke down among the partners, right?
Mm,
Like I think our texts started getting longer and longer to each other because we just, wanted to say everything in one go. And I think we reached that point pretty quick. Like I can't remember when it started, but I know it's probably within like a week of just, all the filters are gone. Just
yeah,
everything just goes out. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think it was really quite unfortunate because I think at that point in time, we've been working for 3 years together, 3 to 4
mm,
years together, right? And it was, yeah, when all that things happened, it just felt very like this should have happened. It was very uncomfortable. But at the same time, the things that I guess we said to each other was needed to be said. It should have been said like maybe over the last 3 years.
yeah,
But it just came out all in one go. Yeah. And because the comms broke down, right, in the end, we stopped trusting each other as well. We start thinking, what is the other person thinking about us?
yeah,
And then it just became really, I wouldn't say, okay, maybe I should. Yeah, it became slightly toxic. Yeah.
yeah. I no doubtably would have become toxic. And you kind of said like it was lukewarm for a long time. It makes me think of like I think the story of the frog in the frying pan. Like if you
Yeah.
put a
Yeah.
hot frying pan, it jumps straight out. But if you start to heat the frying pan with the frog already in it, it's not going to move out, and it just
Yeah.
eventually.
Just boiled. Yeah.
And your boiling point was literally that's when within a week we're just dropping these long texts. The filters are gone, just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
It's tough. I think like a big lesson that I learned this long ago is that you do have to treat any form of business partnership like a marriage. And before you get married, you kind of go through your courtship phase. And if you
Yeah.
think about a relationship, you go on dates and you learn about what they care about, their values, and so on and so on and so on, right? And obviously, it's
Yeah.
typically a longer process.
Yeah.
But it's the same when you're looking for a co-founder. You just sit down and talk about, do we have a shared vision, right? Do we have shared values? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And you can, it's different in a relationship where you probably can't just sit down and go, okay, list out your values for me.
Yeah.
At a court,
You
right?
kind of have to discover them as you have the conversation, right?
Yeah, but when you're actually sitting down seriously trying to get a business relationship, you can have those deeper conversations about where we're going, why are we doing it, etc. And it sounds like that was the major road like gap
Yeah.
here. And now you hire first, you took equity after loyalty is established, right? How do you define loyalty in a startup? And at what point do you start to feel comfortable perhaps having an equity conversation with a key employee? Do you have a framework for that?
Well, there's no official framework for it right now. Okay, I think maybe I can just share. We had one of our one of our oldest hires just leave us like quite recently, and I was quite bummed because I saw this person as potentially staying in the company, getting a little bit of equity, building up an entire department on his own kind of thing.
Mm,
But again, the vision didn't align. And we were okay with that because when we had a discussion of going through his evaluation, I think almost a year after he joined, we already discovered that the vision wasn't aligned and he had a different plan for his future. And I told him, oh, that's great. At least I know it now. Right. Before I start activating certain things or like talking about equity and things like that. And yeah, we're still good buddies now. Yeah. So I think the first step would be making sure that the vision isn't just talked about, it's actually lived, kind of thing. So we constantly try in our company right now to keep talking about our vision, to keep
Mm.
talking about the values that we have. We have a whole chart about it. Every few weeks, I will quiz the whole team just to make sure that everyone knows what it is. And I think if we keep talking about it, people will either accept it or at least know it. I think you know it first, and knowing's half the battle, right? Know it first, and then maybe the longer you stay in the company, the more you can adopt it as your own. I always say this, like the coolest thing about running your own company is that your values technically becomes the company values too, because I kind of can like weave my values into the whole thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say align on the vision first, and then check consistently with the person.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is kind of like my plan for you, similar to the plan that you have. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be exactly the plan that you have, but is it like, are we parallel in our direction now?
Yeah.
Or is it like, are we reaching like this crossroad where you have to decide, you know? So I think constant checks will help. I think as well, I don't know whether it's like good advice or whatever, but I think you got to know the person not just as an employee, especially if you're looking at equity, right?
Mm.
You kind of have to know this person beyond that level. Maybe
Yeah.
I would even say friendships, or even like this person needs to be close enough that you know how this person is when he's not working or whatever. Because I think that also, when you're out of work, your values that you bring out of work also reflects that. And
Mm.
I think because of the whole experience with what I've gone through, I really care about values aligning throughout your entire life.
Mm.
I think you should be a consistent person, right?
Mm.
Whether you're at work, outside of work, with your friends, with your family, you are a consistent person. And I think that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking
Mm.
for that consistency. You're not, because if you are someone else at work, it means which side are you pretending, right? And then like one of these days, one of those will crack. If you
Mm.
are two-faced, maybe two-faced is a bit too rude. But yeah, if you have two personalities, right? One day one of them will crack, and then the true self will come out, right? So I wanted to find someone that shares the same vision and is consistent throughout that vision as well in the
Yeah.
values.
Makes sense. I like how you're like the knowing is half the battle. It's a really good point. I think the only other point I would add for people who are thinking about how they instill and create values within their businesses, the way I look at a value system is it's actually behaviors. So
Mm.
like if one of our values is, hey, we communicate, we have really good communication in our business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to say, but what are the expected behaviors that we consider, you and I, good
Yeah.
communication? Because you might have a different definition of good communication to me. So having the behaviors set and then holding everybody to account. If somebody misses the mark on that behavior, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but we address it, right? And we celebrate people who are living up to our behaviors. And I completely agree. I think culture, like company culture, is the driving force behind everything. Right? You can have
Yeah.
whatever you like, but culture is so important. And if somebody is disciplined at work, they're probably going to be disciplined in life. And I see what you mean by like consistently across. And although we didn't talk about this, I understand now that you've got new partners, right? Am I correct in saying your wife is the partner?
Yeah. Yeah. So some ways I kind of said that I lost one partner to marry another partner.
Literally. How is that? Like, because working with your wife, that's everything is very connected.
Yeah. There is no work-life balance. There's no work-life balance. I think everything just works across the board altogether. But yeah, I think the cool thing about, I think, working with your spouse, is that if you, I mean, you, like you said, a business partner is like almost like a marriage, right? And when you choose someone to marry, you kind of like have a aligned vision as well, aligned values and things like that. So if me and my spouse already have aligned values, we can bring those same values into our workplace and make sure that our team can align on those as well. So two is stronger than one. And yeah, so far it's been a good ride. I think it's almost 2 years now that she's been with us. Yeah, we are still figuring out, like, okay, who is the CMO, who is the CEO? But right now it's quite blended, I would say.
Well, I wish you luck with that. That's it's hard enough. Marriage is hard enough. Business partnerships are hard enough. Why not do it all together?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, right? And if you are in it for the life, I'm
Yeah.
seeing it in it for life, right? I'm seeing our business as something that It's kind of like our what we want to continue to see grow throughout our entire working life.
It's
And
your
yeah, we want
first
to see
child.
it succeed. Yeah. Yeah, it's our first child. Yeah, it's a good practice, right?
And kind of to wrap up this old partnership, you had to buy them out, right? You had to buy their shares out. Can you talk about sort of what was the financial, you don't have to give me numbers, but the
Yeah.
financial and emotional cost, emotional as well, of that process? And
Yeah.
for founders listening, what advice would you give a founder who might currently be going through a similar situation and perhaps they're afraid to take that step?
Yeah, I would say maybe I'll start with the advice to founders just a little bit. I would say start the conversation, find a neutral party first, and then maybe if you guys cannot talk, get a neutral party to be part of that conversation and hash it out. Because the faster you do it, the less your company suffers. Yeah. But how we did it in the end of the day was that we found a neutral party, which was our outsourced accountant. I think when we couldn't work together anymore, when we realized that, or we decided that, we cannot work together anymore, I think we both agreed that our accountant will decide how we're going to split the shares or how we're going to figure out the payout and things like that. I'm quite thankful how it went out because the accountant said basically, you guys are a service industry. And so you don't own many assets. So you cannot really split it by the assets. The value of the company is not split by the assets, but the value of the company is split by the profit. And so at the end of the day, I basically had to buy off the equivalent percentage of profits from my ex partner. Well, it's still not a small amount of money, but it could have been, if you have this like Valley mindset, like, oh, 20x of potential money for the next 20 years, that type of thing. So in my mind, that was something in the back of my mind. And I was quite thankful when the accountant said, look, it's a service industry. It's not like you do not have any intellectual property or things like that. So let's keep it simple. And yeah, that's how we in the end agreed as well. And it's a good thing that we agreed to it before we talked to our accountant,
Mm,
because if not, then, later, like he said, or, you start pointing fingers and things like that.
yeah.
So the neutral party is quite important. Someone who's objective that you both feel are objective as well. Um, Maybe even
So
a consultant.
yeah, so get a third party to help with the
Yeah.
conversation. Doesn't have to have skin in the game, but
Yeah.
also I think what you said at the beginning, just start the conversation. I call that like put the elephant in the room. The longer
Yeah.
you don't talk about the elephant in the room, it's there, right? And only
Yeah. Yeah.
bigger.
Yeah, because it will affect the operations in the long run. Back then, we only had, I think, 2 staff. Oh, actually, we had 3 staff at that point in time. But yeah, they could feel it. They could feel the tension. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know whose side to take. In the
Yeah,
end, it felt like we were going through a divorce and the kids were, having to choose which
exactly.
family they want to belong to. And
Exactly.
it was very difficult because they didn't know who would they end up working with, because there were conversations of a complete killing of the company.
Yeah.
And there was a conversation about, maybe my partner would take the company instead, that type of thing. That was still on the table. So the options that we had was all over the place. But at the end of the day, I think we agreed that, I was the person that wanted to start the company in the first place.
Yeah.
And so therefore I should get the right to kind of like end it. Right. The impact is quite painful because I think it took me about a year plus to kind of like get over this fear of partnering, right? Yes, my wife came in, but because she has no choice. But yeah, even right now when we talk about, giving equity to potential long-term staff and things like that, that still scares me right now. But it's only recently that I've thought about it. Like I said, hey, if I have staff that has been with us for more than 2 years, is it time to just talk to them like, hey, are you in it for the long run? How can we like make sure that you're happy with the company and stay with us? And it's only after a year plus that I can be comfortable releasing equity again. Yeah, it is kind of like scary because it's kind of like I thought I could lose this whole thing that I was building, this whole thing that I've spent a lot of my time creating, right? And I think it's very different from a lot of founders out there as well. I think a lot of newer entrepreneurs, they build to sell, or they build to merge, or they build for acquisition. But I think for me, I always saw my company as more of something that I will carry with me and slowly
And
build
lifestyle.
and add more things along the way. So it's
Yeah.
a different ball game altogether. But yeah, I think because of that, I had a little more sentimental value
Mm.
in the company. Whereas, like, for example, I used to work in another agency that got bought over and things like that. And I think from the day one, the founders had the idea of selling the moment they
Yeah.
joined. So that's a different purpose vehicle altogether.
Yeah.
Whereas like for me, it was a little bit more personal. When I lost a partner, it was a lot more personal. So when I had to recover from that whole buying out the shares and things like that, it took a long time to recover. So I don't know whether the advice is stop caring so much and just do business. But yeah, I think it's different trajectory compared to other businesses as well.
No, you should care. You should deeply care. And what you've described here is you're building a lifestyle business, a legacy, something that you want to keep in your life for decades. Whereas some people, yeah, they're building to scale and exit. And there's no right or wrong answer,
Yeah,
everyone.
there's no right and wrong.
Hey, Ruben, I really appreciate you coming on the pod, sharing your story. I think a lot of people who are either in these difficult partnerships or considering having partnerships can learn a lot from your experience. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. See you around.
Sure.